On the coldest night of December, a woman known for shutting down million-dollar deals without blinking was stopped by something she couldn't ignore, a small voice cutting through the snowstorm. "Ma'am, please help us. My baby sister is freezing." Imani Brooks had built a billion-dollar tech empire from nothing. She didn't do weakness, she didn't do emotional attachments, and she definitely didn't do strangers. But standing there in Henderson Park, heels sinking into fresh snow, her mind still buzzing with acquisition numbers, she saw him, a young black boy no more than 8, holding a baby wrapped in a thin blanket, his voice shaking, his eyes desperate. The Ice Queen of Silicon Row, media-dubbed and proud, felt something crack inside her chest. What happened next would change 3 lives forever, including her own. This is the story of how one ruthless CEO became a mother overnight, how a penthouse became a home, and how the coldest night of the year thawed the most guarded heart. If this story moves you, please like and subscribe. We share real stories of unexpected miracles every week. They called me the Ice Queen, and I wore it like armor. Imani Brooks, CEO of Nexus Technologies, worth $1.2 billion before I turned 40, featured on magazine covers with my arms crossed and my expression unreadable. Ruthless, they said. Brilliant, they admitted. Lonely, they whispered when they thought I couldn't hear. My penthouse sat on the 43rd floor overlooking the city, all glass, marble, and silence. Everything had its place. Nothing was unnecessary. I designed it that way after the divorce, after my ex-husband took our daughter Naya to Atlanta, after the custody agreement that gave me every other weekend and major holidays. 10 years old now, and I saw her maybe once a month. My days were board meetings, hostile takeovers, 18-hour work sprints. My nights were conference calls with Tokyo, London, Dubai. I'd built this empire from a college dorm room and 2 credit cards. I'd survived being the only woman in rooms full of men who wanted me to fail. I'd learned early, emotions are liabilities. Attachments make you weak. So I kept my circle small, my walls high, my heart locked behind bulletproof glass. Respected, yes. Feared, absolutely. But loved? That required vulnerability I couldn't afford. That December night, walking through Henderson Park because my driver canceled, I believed I had everything figured out. I had no idea how wrong I was. The snow came down in sheets, the kind that erases footprints within seconds. My Louboutins weren't made for this weather, but the park cut my walk home by 15 minutes. Time is money, even at midnight. My phone buzzed, another email from the Tokyo office. I was typing a response when I heard it. "Ma'am, please." I almost kept walking. Almost. But something in that small voice stopped me cold. He stood beside a snow-covered bench, barely visible in the darkness. 8 years old, maybe younger, wearing a jacket too thin for December. In his arms, a bundle that moved, a baby wrapped in what looked like a beach towel with cartoon characters. "Please help us," he said again, teeth chattering. "My baby sister is freezing." I should have called 911 and kept moving. That's what the old Imani would have done. Efficient, detached, safe. But when I looked at that baby, her tiny lips tinged blue, her cries weak and irregular, something inside me shattered. "What's your name?" I knelt in the snow, my $1,000 suit be damned. "Malik Johnson, this is Zuri, our mama. She said she'd be right back, but that was..." He looked at the darkening sky, struggling with time. A long time ago. The baby's breathing was shallow, dangerously so. I pulled off my wool coat and wrapped them both. "Come with me. Now." My doorman's face was priceless when I walked through the lobby with 2 children wrapped in my designer coat. "Ms. Brooks, should I..." "Call Dr. Ravi. Tell him it's an emergency. He has 5 minutes to get here or I'm calling someone who will." I didn't wait for a response. Just headed straight for the private elevator, Malik's small hand gripping mine with surprising strength. Inside my pristine penthouse, I'd never felt more unprepared. No blankets soft enough for a baby, no food a child would eat, nothing that suggested a human with a heart lived here. I grabbed cashmere throws from the closet, cranked the thermostat to 80, and held Zuri while Malik huddled beside me on the Italian leather sofa. Dr. Ravi arrived 6 minutes later, bless him, medical bag in hand. His examination was swift and grim. Moderate hypothermia. Another hour outside and we'd be having a very different conversation. He started an IV line with practiced efficiency. We need to contact the authorities. The police came. Then social services. My living room filled with strangers asking questions I couldn't answer. Who are they? Where's the mother? Why did you bring them here instead of the hospital? Because they needed help immediately, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. And I provided it. The detective, a tired-looking woman named Martinez, told me what they'd found. Danielle Johnson, known to the system, struggling with addiction, recently relapsed. The kids will likely go into emergency foster care, Martinez said, not unkindly. Probably separate homes. The system is overwhelmed right now. Malik heard that. His eyes went wide with terror. No, we stay together. We always stay together. I felt his fingers tighten around mine, and something in me decided. The words came out before I'd fully thought them through. What if they stay with me? Every head in the room turned. Detective Martinez looked like I'd suggested flying to the moon. Ms. Brooks, with all due respect, you're a single woman with a demanding career. You have no obligation here. These children need stability, safety, someone who won't separate them. I looked down at Malik, at the way he held his baby sister like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. I recognized that fierce protectiveness. I'd felt it once, before career and divorce and distance taught me to bury it. I can provide that. This isn't a corporate acquisition, the social worker said gently. These are traumatized children. They need specialized care, therapy, patience. They need someone who's there, not someone who works 100 hours a week. She wasn't wrong, but she also hadn't seen Malik's face when they mentioned foster care, hadn't felt Zuri's tiny body slowly warming against her chest, hadn't heard that small voice in the snow begging for help. Then I'll make changes, I said, my CEO voice leaving no room for argument. Emergency foster placement, temporary. Whatever paperwork you need, get it started. I'll have my lawyers expedite everything. It took until 3 a.m. emergency home inspection, background checks already on file from my custody agreement with Nia, character references from judges and senators who owed me favors. I pulled every string I had. When I finally carried sleeping Zuri to my guest room, Malik refusing to let go of my hand, I realized I'd just made the most irrational, impulsive, completely unbusinesslike decision of my entire life. And somehow, it felt like the first truly right thing I'd done in years. I hired Mrs. Loretta Green on day 3, a grandmother of 6 with eyes that missed nothing and a voice that could soothe or discipline with equal effectiveness. "You need help, baby," she told me after surveying my immaculate, child-proof nightmare of a home. "And these babies need more than designer furniture and good intentions." She was right. I'd bought everything the internet said children needed, cribs and high chairs and educational toys still in their packaging, but I didn't know what Malik liked for breakfast or how to hold Zuri so she'd stop crying. I could negotiate with Fortune 500 CEOs, but couldn't figure out why a 9-month-old baby refused to sleep. "She's scared," Mrs. Green said simply. "That baby spent who knows how long being cold and hungry. She needs to feel safe again, routine, warmth, you." So I learned. Bottles at specific temperatures. The exact way to rock Zuri so she'd finally close her eyes. How Malik had nightmares about being cold, would wake up crying, checking to make sure his sister was still breathing. I started working from home, taking calls with a baby on my hip, reviewing contracts while reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar for the 5th time. The media found out, of course. Ice Queen melts, tech CEO rescues abandoned children. My PR team wanted to capitalize on it. I fired them. The breakthrough came 2 weeks in. Malik had stopped calling me ma'am, started saying Ms. Imani instead. Small progress, but it felt monumental. That night, he had another nightmare. I heard him through the baby monitor, went to his room. "You're okay," I whispered, sitting on the edge of his bed. "You're both safe. I promise." "Promise you won't make us leave?" I should have been honest about the temporary nature of this arrangement, should have managed expectations. But looking at his terrified 8-year-old face, I couldn't. "I promise I'll fight like hell to keep you safe." He hugged me then. This fierce little boy who'd protected his baby sister through impossible circumstances wrapped his arms around my neck and held on, and I held back, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Not profit margins or stock prices or market dominance. Just the simple, profound purpose of being needed by someone who had nothing to offer in return except trust. My penthouse was no longer silent. It was filled with Zuri's giggles, Malik's questions, Mrs. Green's humming while she cooked. It was messy and chaotic, and nothing like I'd planned. It was starting to feel like home. The family court hearing was set for January 15th. I walked in wearing my power suit, flanked by the best family law attorney money could buy. Across the room sat representatives from child services, a court-appointed guardian, and somewhere in the system, presumably Danielle Johnson being notified of the proceedings. Judge Patricia Morrison had a reputation for being thorough and unimpressed by wealth. She reviewed my petition for temporary foster custody with an expression I couldn't read. I'd faced hostile boardrooms, but somehow this terrified me more. "Ms. Brooks," she said finally, "I've reviewed your financials. Your home inspection passed. Your background check is impeccable. You clearly have the resources to provide for these children." She paused. "But resources aren't love. Money isn't stability. So I'm going to ask you directly, why would a billionaire CEO with no prior experience with young children suddenly take in 2 traumatized kids she found in a park?" The courtroom went silent. My lawyer shifted beside me. We'd prepared an answer, practiced it, polished it until it shone. But standing there, with Malik and Zuri in the care of Mrs. Green in a waiting room down the hall, the rehearsed words felt hollow. "Because they needed someone," I said, my voice quieter than I intended. "And maybe I did too." Judge Morrison's expression softened fractionally. "Elaborate." "I built an empire, Your Honor. I have money, success, recognition. I have a daughter I barely see because I chose career over custody. I have a penthouse that echoes." I took a breath. That night in the park, I could have called someone else. Should have, probably. But when Malik asked for help, when I saw them both so vulnerable, I couldn't walk away. And every day since, they've taught me more about what matters than any business deal ever did. This isn't a redemption arc, Ms. Brooks. These are real children with real trauma. I know, and I'm learning. I hired Mrs. Green, an experienced caregiver. I've reduced my work hours, started therapy. For me and for Malik. I'm not perfect, but I'm committed. And those kids deserve someone who won't give up on them just because it's hard. The judge studied me for a long moment. Temporary foster custody granted. 6-month review. I'll be watching closely, Ms. Brooks. These children have already been failed by one parent. I won't allow it to happen again. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt the weight of it. I just promised a judge, but more importantly, I'd promised myself. This wasn't charity. This wasn't PR. This was my life now, and I intended to get it right. Nia's visit was scheduled for February, her first since the kids arrived. I was terrified. My lawyer had warned me. Introducing Malik and Zuri to Nia could complicate my already strained relationship with my biological daughter. She might feel replaced, resentful, abandoned all over again. I'd prepared speeches, planned activities, bought enough craft supplies to stock a school. When she walked through the door, 10 years old now, growing up too fast, I searched her face for anger. Instead, she looked at Malik and said, "Is this my brother?" "Not your foster kid, not the boy you rescued. My brother." Malik, shy as always with strangers, nodded. Nia immediately sat down on the floor beside him. "Cool Legos, can I help build?" Just like that, the tension I'd been carrying for weeks evaporated. By dinner, Nia was feeding Zuri mashed sweet potatoes, making airplane noises, laughing when the baby grabbed her nose. By bedtime, she'd taught Malik a complicated handshake and declared herself his big sister. That night, after the younger kids were asleep, Nia and I sat in the kitchen, once sterile and unused, now cluttered with sippy cups and baby bottles. "Are you mad?" I asked finally. "About Malik and Zuri?" She considered this seriously, my thoughtful daughter. "Sometimes I'm mad you work so much, that I live with Dad, that we don't get more time." She paused. "But this? You helping kids who had nobody? That makes me proud, Mom." Mom. She'd been calling me Amani for the past year, asserting her independence. Hearing Mom again broke something open in my chest. "I'm trying to be better," I whispered. "At all of it." "I know," she hugged me. "And Mom? My little sister is really cute." My penthouse, my glass and marble fortress of solitude, was completely transformed. Toys scattered across previously pristine floors, crayon drawings held to the refrigerator with magnets, laughter echoing off walls that had only known silence, 3 kids instead of the controlled visits with one, chaos instead of order, life instead of emptiness. For the first time in years, I wasn't the Ice Queen. I was just someone trying to be worthy of being called Mom. Danielle Johnson completed her 60-day rehabilitation program that March. I got the call from Detective Martinez on a Tuesday morning. Zuri balanced on my hip while I reviewed quarterly projections. My stomach dropped. The meeting was arranged for the following week, supervised at the Child Services Office. I'd spent months terrified of this moment, knowing legally these weren't my children, knowing a mother who got clean could take them back. Malik had started calling me Mom when he thought I wasn't listening. Zuri reached for me when she was scared. They were mine in every way that mattered, except the one that counted legally. Danielle looked different, healthier, clear-eyed, present in a way the case files said she hadn't been in years. But when she saw her children, when Malik stood frozen and Zuri didn't recognize her, something broke in her expression. "They're beautiful," she whispered, tears streaming. "You've taken such good care of them." The social worker explained the options: reunification, continued foster care. Danielle had completed the program, had stable housing lined up, had every legal right to try again. I prepared myself to lose them, to have my heart ripped out in a sterile government office. Then Danielle said the words I never expected. "I can't." "You're doing well in recovery," the social worker said gently. "You have support systems now." "I love my babies." Danielle looked directly at me. "That's why I can't. Malik doesn't remember me sober. Zuri doesn't know me at all. And this woman," her voice cracked, "she gave them what I couldn't: stability, safety, a mother who shows up." She formally relinquished her parental rights that day, made me promise to tell them she loved them, that giving them up was the hardest and most loving thing she'd ever done. I held her while she cried, this stranger who'd given me the greatest gift of my life at the cost of her own heart. The adoption was finalized the following December, almost 2 years to the day after I found them in the park. Malik was 9 now, Zuri a toddler taking wobbly steps and saying, "Mama," clear as day. Nia sat with us in the courtroom, wearing a shirt that said, "Best Big Sister." "By the power vested in me," Judge Morrison said, "I hereby declare these children legally adopted. Malik Emmanuel Brooks, Zuri Grace Brooks, welcome to your forever family." Malik held his little sister in court, both of them officially mine, and I, The woman who'd built a billion-dollar empire, who'd never cried at board meetings or hostile takeovers, wept openly. That evening, in our living room, cluttered with toys and books and evidence of life beautifully lived, I sat with my laptop buzzing with deal notifications I'd answer tomorrow. Zuri giggled in her playpen. Malik explained a science project about volcanoes. Nia video called from Atlanta saying goodnight, asking when her brother and sister could visit. My penthouse wasn't pristine anymore. My schedule wasn't perfectly controlled. My reputation had shifted from ice queen to something softer, more human, infinitely more valuable. I'd spent years believing success meant wealth and power and walls high enough to never get hurt. But sitting there, covered in toddler drool and crayon marks, listening to my son talk about lava flows while my daughters laughed, I finally understood. This was success. This messy, chaotic, perfectly imperfect love. I wasn't the ice queen anymore. I was just mom. And that was everything. Like and subscribe for more true stories of unexpected miracles, second chances, and the moments that change everything. Drop a comment telling us what you'd do if you encountered Malik that cold December night. Sometimes the smallest voice calls us toward our biggest purpose. Thank you for watching. This is Beyond the Scripted. Please subscribe, like, and share for more interesting stories.